The salt-laced wind sang through broken panes, a haunting lullaby to a house that once knew only the meticulous hush of summer elegance. Outside, the wild green swallowed fences, climbing toward the eaves like a living shroud. Inside, echoes of a life once grand whispered from every shadowed corner, from every dust-laden curtain. This wasn't merely neglect. It was a defiant, almost ritualistic embrace of ruin. For decades, the name Grey Gardens would become synonymous with a forgotten glamour, a strange and isolated world where two women, once figures of society's pinnacle, made their stand. Their story, steeped in privilege and painted with the slow decay of a cherished home, forces us to confront questions of independence, identity, and the fierce grip of memory. How did a family of such distinguished lineage come to inhabit a dwelling slowly slipping from the pages of history? Before we unravel the threads of this extraordinary narrative, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from today? Share your location in the comments below. To truly understand the enigma of Grey Gardens, we must first return to its origins. To truly understand the enigma of Grey Gardens, we must first return to its origins. In the early 20th century, the landscape of East Hampton, New York, underwent a profound transformation. What had once been a quiet farming village, characterized by its agricultural rhythms and close-knit community, began to evolve into a distinct summer enclave. This change was driven by the influx of New York City's burgeoning wealthy elite, who sought respite from urban summers along the Atlantic coastline. Properties were acquired, grand estates were constructed, and a new social order emerged, defined by exclusive clubs, meticulously manicured lawns sloping towards the sea, and a calendar punctuated by social registries and charity luncheons. It was into this burgeoning world of inherited privilege and strict societal expectations that the house known as Grey Gardens and its future inhabitants were born. The Beale family's acquisition of the property in the 1920s positioned them firmly within this elevated social stratum. At the heart of this family was Edith Ewing Beale, a woman destined to become known to the world as Big Edie. Born in 1895 into the distinguished Bouvier clan, a family tracing its roots to French-American aristocracy, Edith's early life was meticulously sculpted by the rigid conventions of her class. Her childhood was an intricate tapestry of summer houses, the guidance of governesses, rigorous music lessons, and an unyielding set of expectations regarding the comportment of a young woman of her standing. These formative years cultivated within her a profound sense of self that found its fullest expression in the art of hosting grand gatherings, performing captivating songs, and meticulously curating a life surrounded by familiar rituals and refined aesthetics. Her marriage to Phelan Beale initially integrated seamlessly into this carefully constructed world. Phelan, a prominent lawyer with connections to the Democratic Party, embodied the civic esteem and political engagement expected of a man of his standing. Together, they navigated the prescribed rhythms of a well-bred East Coast family. Winters were spent amidst the cultural sophistication of Manhattan, while summers unfolded within the sun-drenched exclusivity of the Hamptons. Their three children, Phelan Jr., Bouvier, and Edith, who would later be known as Little Edie, were raised under the close supervision of tutors and nurses, ensuring their education and upbringing adhered to the standards of their social caste. For a time, their existence at Grey Gardens exemplified the idealized image of American aristocracy. However, even within the seemingly impeccable facades of upper-class marriages during that era, hidden fractures often accumulated beneath polished surfaces. As the years progressed, subtle but persistent financial strains began to manifest, accumulating quietly in the margins of their opulent lifestyle. Phelan's career trajectory shifted, and the family's fortunes, once seemingly unshakable, began a gradual but discernible decline. Concurrently, a reservoir of resentments and unspoken frustrations accumulated in the quiet rooms of Grey Gardens, eroding the foundation of their union. Eventually, in the early 1930s, the marriage dissolved.
Phelan Beale delivered the final divorce papers from Mexico, a detail that, in its abruptness and geographical distance, was emblematic of the era's stark gender dynamics and the limited agency often afforded to women in such circumstances. The onset of the Great Depression only amplified the pressures on individuals like Edith. Society, facing unprecedented economic challenges, expected women of her former standing to remarry, to downsize their extravagant lifestyles, or at the very least, to conduct themselves with subdued discretion. However, Big Edie was fundamentally not a woman predisposed to quiet compliance. Her spirit was one of vibrant nonconformity. She possessed a deep and abiding love for music, a passion that transcended mere hobby and permeated her very identity. She steadfastly refused to relinquish her role as a performer. Instead, she chose to host small, intimate music halls in the parlor of Grey Gardens, transforming the space into her personal stage. She continued to wear elaborate, often theatrical outfits, defiantly keeping the world she loved even as the tangible security of her financial situation steadily slipped away. Her unwavering refusal to abandon her artistic self made her a captivating, albeit increasingly anachronistic figure. Yet, this same defiance rendered her profoundly ill-fitted for the escalating economic and social pressures that would inexorably reshape her world and the fate of Grey Gardens. The house, once a symbol of the family's prosperity, now became a defiant stage for a life refusing to be diminished by circumstance, its elegant rooms bearing silent witness to both a fading glory and an unyielding spirit. While Big Edie maintained her defiant stand within the increasingly isolated walls of Grey Gardens, a parallel narrative unfolded in Manhattan, charting the meteoric rise and eventual retreat of her daughter, Edith Bouvier Beale, known to the world as Little Edie. Born in 1917, Little Edie possessed a potent blend of her parents' most striking attributes. From her mother, she inherited a profound theatricality and an innate understanding of how to command attention. From her father, Phelan Beale, she drew a captivating charm and an undeniably striking physical presence. Early photographs from her youth reveal a young woman of luminous eyes, an elegant bearing, and a rare ease before the camera lens, suggesting a destiny far removed from the quiet confines of East Hampton. Her emergence onto the social scene was carefully orchestrated, befitting her Bouvier lineage. As a debutante, Little Edie navigated the intricate world of society balls, charity functions, and exclusive gatherings with a distinctive grace. Her debutante year was a whirlwind of bespoke gowns and whispered introductions, driven by the societal expectation of finding a suitable match from within her social class. Yet, amidst this structured elegance, her unique personality shone through. She was often described as vivacious and independently minded, a trait that both captivated and occasionally unnerved the more conventional members of her circle. She did not merely participate, she performed, often using her sharp wit and engaging manner to charm her way through the most exclusive rooms. The gravitational pull of Manhattan, the city of possibilities, eventually proved irresistible. In an era when many young women of her background were expected to marry and settle, Little Edie made a bold move, establishing residence at the iconic Barbizon Hotel for Women. This venerable institution, situated on Lexington Avenue, was more than just a hotel. It was a sanctuary and a launching pad for aspiring actresses, models, writers, and artists. Its halls buzzed with the energy of ambition, independence, and creativity. For Little Edie, the Barbizon offered a heady taste of freedom from the often stifling expectations of her family and the rigid societal norms of East Hampton. Here, amidst other driven young women, she immersed herself in Manhattan's vibrant artistic circles. She met aspiring playwrights, mingled with models and photographers, and attended countless auditions and callbacks, cultivating an identity that balanced her socialite heritage with the burgeoning aspirations of a performer. Her talent was recognized, leading to promising opportunities. Little Edie pursued a career as an actress and model, her striking features and natural poise making her a compelling subject for photographers and a magnetic presence in front of casting directors. Her image graced the pages of fashion magazines, and she garnered admiration from influential figures within the industry. Among her most notable admirers was Cecil Beaton, the renowned British photographer, designer, and diarist. Beaton, known for his discerning eye and his ability to capture the essence of his subjects, recognized little Edie's singular allure. His praise and the opportunities his attention afforded her were significant validations of her potential, solidifying her belief in a promising future in the arts. These were years of vibrant possibility, where the lights of Broadway and the pages of Vogue seemed within her grasp, offering a clear path away from the shadow of her increasingly eccentric world. However, beneath this veneer of outward success and burgeoning independence, little Edie grappled with growing insecurities. The pressures of the competitive, artistic world, combined with the inherent instability of a performing career, began to chip away at her self-confidence. Moreover, a significant personal challenge emerged: alopecia, a condition causing sudden hair loss. For a woman whose identity was intricately linked to her striking appearance and her public image, this was a devastating blow. The loss of her hair not only created physical discomfort, but also eroded her professional opportunities as a model and actress, limiting her access to roles and shoots that had once seemed hers for the taking. The public-facing nature of her aspirations made this particularly difficult, forcing her to confront a vulnerability she struggled to conceal. Compounding these professional setbacks were a series of profound romantic disappointments. Little Edie experienced several failed engagements and relationships that, for various reasons, never materialized into the stable partnership she desired. Each romantic failure further chipped away at her emotional resilience, exacerbating her insecurities. The societal pressure to marry, particularly for women of her background, was immense, and her inability to find a lasting partner contributed to a growing sense of personal failure. These romantic disillusionments, coupled with the complex and often suffocating dynamics of her family, gradually exerted a powerful gravitational pull, drawing her back towards the orbit of her childhood home in East Hampton. The relationship with her mother, Big Edie, was a central and complicating factor. Big Edie, now fully entrenched in her world of defiant eccentricity at Grey Gardens, likely employed a mixture of emotional pleas and subtle manipulations to draw her daughter back. Their bond was deep and intensely complicated, a mixture of fierce love, rivalry, mutual reliance, and unresolved childhood issues. Little Edie, perhaps exhausted by her struggles in Manhattan and increasingly vulnerable, found herself unable to fully disentangle from her mother's influence. Compounding this emotional entanglement was the stark financial reality. Manhattan was an expensive city, and as the Beale family's fortunes continued their decline, the financial support little Edie might have once expected diminished. Sustaining an independent life in the city became an ever greater challenge, making the prospect of returning home, however fraught, a more practical, if emotionally burdensome option. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, a decision that had perhaps been long anticipated became a permanent reality. Little Edie returned to Grey Gardens, not for a temporary visit, but to reside there definitively with her mother. This marked a critical turning point for both women and for the estate itself. The immediate consequence of her permanent return, without the means to employ the full retinue of staff that once maintained such a grand property, was the rapid and increasingly visible acceleration of the mansion's physical decay. What had once been a meticulously tended estate, a symbol of old money elegance, began its undeniable descent into disrepair. Windows once gleaming were now often cracked or boarded, letting in the biting Atlantic winds and the corrosive salt air. The vibrant paint that had adorned its clapboard exterior peeled in great, curling sheets, exposing the raw, weathered wood beneath. The once manicured gardens, testament to generations of skilled groundskeepers, became a wild, untangle of honeysuckle, briars, and tall grasses, swaying with unchecked abandon, mimicking the wild tides of the nearby ocean. The pervasive sense of neglect was almost palpable, a slow erosion of form and function. Rooms that had once hosted elegant afternoon teas, filled with polite conversation and the delicate clinking of china, now accumulated stacks of old newspapers, trunks overflowing with clothes, and a chaotic collection of objects accumulated over years of improvisation and an inability to discard. The very structure of the house, battered by decades of Atlantic storms and human indifference, began to reflect the internal landscapes of its inhabitants. This visible decline of Grey Gardens became a poignant, almost allegorical, reflection of little Edie's own eroded dreams. The grand house, mirroring the grand aspirations she once held, was slowly succumbing to the relentless march of time and circumstance. Its fading beauty a silent testament to opportunities lost and a life rerouted by forces both internal and external. The stage was now set for an extraordinary, isolated existence, where mother and daughter would face the encroaching world from within their crumbling yet defiantly inhabited sanctuary. As the exterior of Grey Gardens surrendered to the relentless embrace of nature, its interior became a testament to a different kind of defiance, a world meticulously, if haphazardly, curated by its two inhabitants. The elegance of a bygone era still clung to certain elements, now enmeshed with layers of improvisation, decay, and lives lived without external judgment. The parlor functioned as Big Edie's undisputed domain. Sunlight, filtered through frayed lace curtains, illuminated dust motes dancing in the air, a constant reminder of time's passage. At its center stood a grand piano, its keys yellowed, its polished surface obscured by dust, yet still echoing the songs Big Edie had once performed with flourish. Faded portraits of distant ancestors, their frames askew, adorned the walls, silent witnesses to the transformation. This room was not merely a living space. It was a stage where the daily lives of Big Edie and Little Edie unfolded in perpetual, intimate drama. Here, amidst the clutter of old books, newspapers, and cherished trinkets, they engaged in theatrical discussions, sharp arguments, and tender reminiscences. Adjacent to the parlor, the kitchen presented a starker image of practical improvisation. Later county inspection records from 1971 would detail aging appliances, failing plumbing, and unconventional food storage practices. Designed for a retinue of staff, the room now served as evidence of ingenuity born of necessity. Precariously piled canned goods stood next to empty boxes. Small meals were reheated on old burners, their enamel chipped. Numerous cats, some feral, some half-tamed, wove between legs, adding chaotic vitality. The air blended old wood, the faint sharpness of sea air leaking through broken window panes, and the lingering scent of whatever simple meal had last been prepared. Little Edie often drifted through, navigating the improvisational landscape with practiced elegance and urgency. Above, in the attic, Little Edie had carved out a sanctuary uniquely her own. With its slanted ceiling, exposed dusty beams, and a single window to the ocean sky, it became her private theater. Here she rehearsed songs, often with a scratchy record player, her voice carrying through the rafters. She delivered impassioned monologues to an unseen audience, speaking with conviction on freedom, marriage, men, politics, religion, and personal philosophy. The attic also served as workshop for her iconic makeshift costumes, elaborate constructions from scarves, skirts, sweaters, and pins. In this secluded space, she transformed, expressing vulnerability, artistic ambition, and defiant self-expression, embodying the dramatic persona she cultivated. The disarray within Grey Gardens could not be contained by its weathered walls. As the 1960s progressed, external neglect became impossible to ignore. Wild gardens, visible structural decline, and odors drifting across property lines drew neighbor attention. Concerns grew among the East Hampton community, escalating from whispered anecdotes to formal complaints.
Neighbors observed aggressive vines consuming the house and a proliferation of animals, raccoons, opossums, and feral cats claiming the property. The situation escalated, demanding action from local authorities. In July 1971, the Suffolk County Health Department conducted a formal inspection of Grey Gardens. Findings were stark. The official report documented widespread structural decay, compromised walls, sagging ceilings, and damage from rodents, raccoons, and feral cats. Sanitation concerns were paramount, accumulated waste and failing utility systems. These findings, detailing unsanitary and unsafe conditions, quickly dominated local headlines. The story became a local scandal, a peculiar tale of decline within a community that prized meticulous upkeep. The media frenzy, however, escalated dramatically from local curiosity to national sensation, not just from conditions, but because the inhabitants were Bouviers, direct relatives of former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and her sister Lee Radziwill. The revelation that cousins of America's most elegant family lived in such squalor sent shockwaves through public consciousness. It was a stark juxtaposition of privilege and neglect, a compelling narrative for the national press. The situation prompted direct intervention from Jackie Onassis and Lee Radziwill. Their arrival, though discreet, carried immense symbolic weight. For them, this was not mere family embarrassment, but a personal crisis threatening the Bouvier image. They visited the property, witnessing firsthand the deterioration and their relatives' isolated world. Their response was immediate and pragmatic. They funded emergency repairs to prevent eviction, demonstrating family commitment. Workers cleared debris, made rooms minimally habitable, repaired fixtures, and addressed plumbing and electrical systems. Photos from the time depicted before and after: windows replaced, vines trimmed, rooms, though cluttered, made safe. This intervention, while stabilizing the property and averting disaster, did not fundamentally alter the Edie's daily lives. It bought them time, extending their defiant occupancy and setting the stage for greater exposure. The intervention by Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and Lee Radziwill had temporarily stabilized Grey Gardens, averting an immediate eviction, but had also inadvertently peeled back the veil of private eccentricity that had cloaked the Beals for decades. The story, now a national spectacle, was ripe for further exploration. It was into this charged atmosphere, in 1975, that the pioneering documentary filmmakers Albert and David Maysles arrived. With their discreet cameras and an approach that championed the raw, unvarnished truth of cinema verite, the Maysles brothers effectively opened the doors of Grey Gardens to the world, forever altering its narrative trajectory. Their documentary was not a sensationalized exposé, nor was it intended to mock or ridicule Big Eddie and Little Eddie. Instead, it offered an intimate, unfiltered glimpse into their singular lives, revealing them as complex, multifaceted individuals. The film captured their daily routines within the decaying mansion, the constant, theatrical banter between mother and daughter, their sharp-witted arguments that often felt like rehearsed performances, their shared reminiscences, and their tender, if often prickly, displays of affection. Viewers witnessed Big Eddie, formidable and unyielding, holding court in her parlor, still singing her beloved songs, surrounded by a chaotic collage of possessions. They saw Little Eddie, with her iconic headscarves and improvised costumes, dancing, performing, and delivering poignant monologues from the attic, speaking with a captivating blend of vulnerability, defiance, and a yearning for a life unlived. The Maysles lens allowed the public to see them as undeniably funny, stubbornly independent, profoundly wounded by the past, and fiercely resilient in their chosen isolation. The film rapidly became a landmark in documentary filmmaking, transforming Grey Gardens from a local curiosity and a family scandal into an enduring symbol of individuality, eccentricity, and the peculiar fragility of inherited privilege. It challenged conventional notions of mental health, family loyalty, and the very definition of normalcy, forcing audiences to confront their own judgments. The documentary captured the Beals at a pivotal moment, just a few years before a significant shift in their lives. In 1977, Big Eddie died at the age of 81. Her passing marked the end of an era, and, for Little Eddie, a profound, if complicated, release. Untethered at last from the life she had built in tandem with her mother, and from the intense, almost symbiotic relationship that had defined her existence for so long, Little Eddie finally left Grey Gardens. The house, which had been both her refuge and her cage, no longer held the same immutable pull. Her departure necessitated the sale of the property. Little Eddie sold Grey Gardens to Ben Gradley, the renowned executive editor of the Washington Post during the Watergate era, and his wife, journalist Sally Quinn. The transaction came with one crucial, non-negotiable condition: the house must never be demolished. It was a testament to Little Eddie's enduring, if complicated, love for the house and its history. Bradley and Quinn, understanding the cultural significance of the property and respecting her wishes, honored this condition implicitly. Their subsequent restoration of Grey Gardens was extensive, but undertaken with profound sensitivity and respect for its original architectural details. They meticulously repaired the structural damage, cleared the overgrown gardens, replaced broken windows and peeling paint, and restored the interior spaces. Photographs from this vividly document the transformation. Sunlit rooms re-emerged from chaos. Stabilized beams reclaimed their strength, and fresh paint breathed new life into old wood. The restoration brought Grey Gardens back to a semblance of its original grace and grandeur, making it a habitable and aesthetically beautiful home once more, while carefully preserving elements that spoke to its unique history. Freed from Grey Gardens, Little Edie embarked on a new, albeit brief, chapter of her life. She first resided in Manhattan, returning to the city that had once represented her dreams of independence. Later, she moved to Florida, where she continued to maintain her distinctive flair. She made occasional public appearances, performed briefly in cabaret acts, a lifelong dream finally realized, and cultivated an air of enigmatic celebrity until her death in 2002. She never married, and she never truly escaped the shadow or the allure of Grey Gardens. Over time, Grey Gardens transcended its origins as a mere house or a family eccentricity to become a profound cultural touchstone. Its story became the subject of academic essays and scholarly analyses, examining its symbolism in relation to class, gender, and the American dream. Artists referenced its textures, its colors, and its unique atmosphere in their own works. The narrative was reimagined for the stage, leading to a critically acclaimed Broadway musical that explored the complex relationship between Big Edie and Little Edie with new emotional depth and nuance. An HBO film further chronicled the Beals' lives, bringing their story to a new generation of viewers. Through it all, Grey Gardens has endured, not merely as a physical place, but as an idea, a potent meditation on autonomy, memory, decay, and a defiant, often desperate, love. In closing, we have walked through a house that was never simply a building. It was a mirror, reflecting the grand aspirations and the quiet collapses of a bygone era. It was a battleground for familial tensions, a shelter from an unforgiving world, a performance stage for two extraordinary women, and ultimately a final, defiant refuge. We have traced its story from gilded origins to quiet collapse, from public scrutiny to private survival, from cinematic exposure to cultural rebirth. The tale of Grey Gardens is, at its heart, the tale of two women who chose to live according to their own rules, in a world that expected unwavering conformity. Their story endures, not solely for its eccentricity, but because it speaks to the universal human desire for identity itself, the fierce instinct to hold on to what feels true, even when everything around us insists it is time to let go. Grey Gardens stands today, restored, sunlit, and visited by those who know the legend. Yet the memory of its long years of solitude, of its wild beauty and profound neglect, lingers. For some, the story is tragic. For others, it is beautiful. For many, it is both.
What remains undeniable is this: a house can carry the indelible imprint of the lives lived within its walls, and long after those lives have passed, the very structure continues to whisper the echoes of who they once were, inviting us to listen and to reflect on a life lived on one's own terms, a potent blend of both beauty and tragedy. Grey Gardens, a landmark of both opulence and profound decay, ultimately bore witness to its final act of sustained inhabitancy before re-emerging into public consciousness. The Maisels documentary, A Lens into a World Fiercely Guarded, presented two women unyielding in their self-definition, forever altering public perception. With Big Edie's passing in 1977, Little Edie found a complex freedom, stepping beyond the weathered walls that had long defined her. The house, too, entered a new chapter, meticulously restored under the precise condition that it would never be demolished, yet indelibly imprinted with the echoes of the lives it once sheltered. It transitioned from a private world of defiant eccentricity into a public legacy, evolving into a subject of academic study, artistic interpretation, a Broadway musical, and an HBO film. This enduring cultural presence reveals Grey Gardens not merely as a structure, but as a meditation carved in wood and stone. It stands as a testament to the fierce human instinct to claim a space, to define one's own truth, even when that truth profoundly defies societal expectations. The narrative prompts reflection on the often blurred boundaries between eccentricity and resilience, independence and isolation, exposing the profound and at times tragic beauty inherent in a life lived entirely on one's own terms. The complex saga of the Beals continues to provoke discussion regarding the nature of identity and the enduring power of place. What aspects of their story resonated most deeply with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If the echoes of history and the narratives of forgotten grandeur compel your interest, consider exploring our other chronicles of hidden stories from the past. Your engagement fuels these explorations. Please leave a like if you found this journey compelling, and subscribe to Old Money Chronicles for further insights into the untold legacies behind legendary names.